I knew that these people who I was meeting to teach English in their home, first time, just me, by myself, was from Iraq, a country that I'd always knew was scary.
Yeah.
But when I met them, it just instantly melted away. I'd walked into a world that I really didn't know existed. And it was quite life-changing.
You're listening to Who Is My Neighbour, a podcast by You Belong Australia. Each episode, you'll join with Sorgal and Warren to meet some of Australia's newest neighbours. You'll hear their stories, listen to their hopes and dreams, and discover the incredible courage and inspiration they bring to our communities and richly diverse Australian culture. You'll also learn from some more established Aussies too, and the joy they've found living and working alongside our refugee and migrant background neighbours.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Is My Neighbour podcast. In today's episode, we're gonna talk and listen to Erin's story, who is an education and linguistics student, and she has been involved in the refugee community teaching and English, and she has volunteered for some time for Yazda and also TAFE.
We hope you enjoyed this interview. Erin, thanks so much for joining us today on Who Is My Neighbour.
Thank you for having me today.
It's a pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and particularly how you came to be interested in languages and cultures?
Well, I grew up in far southwest Queensland, so at the time that I was there, it wasn't really a place that was particularly diverse in any particular culture, although it did have an incredibly strong Indigenous culture. That was the Bidjara people. So I kind of went, when I was in primary school, I had, we all had to learn Japanese, and most people were like, oh, this is terrible. But the second I learnt Japanese, it was like, the whole world of new and exciting things just suddenly opened up for me. So I guess that was probably the first time that I was really interested in other languages. And then when I got to high school, I came all the way here to Toowoomba, and I went to boarding school with girls from Papua New Guinea, which I didn't even know was an independent country from Australia when I was 13.
For sure.
I went to school with girls from different African countries, and I wish I could say what countries exactly they were from, but while I had all of this diversity around me, so girls from Papua New Guinea, girls from Africa, girls from other Asian countries, it really wasn't spoken about. It was just, we're all here at a Catholic high school, we're all just girls, there's nothing different about anyone. So I guess that kind of got me interested in, it kind of exposed me to different cultures. A few years passed. After that, I was looking for something to do with my life, basically. I started doing a Bachelor of Linguistics, going back to that first love that I had of languages. And I thought that you could teach English without having a teaching degree. Okay. So I thought I'd try and do that for a little bit. And then I was like...
As a native speaker.
Yeah, I know. And then I got that and I was like, actually, this is a lot harder than it first looks, and just understanding linguistics actually doesn't cut it. I think I need to do a teaching degree. And then I just started to volunteer at the TAFE AMEP program, and that's where I guess I could say I first consciously met my first person who is a refugee.
Yep.
I guess the thing that really told me that my passion is working specifically with refugees was when I met the Yazidi people. Okay.
So how did you come about meeting that first Yazidi?
Okay, so, well, I was volunteering with the AMEP. So yes, I was aware that I was with Yazidi people.
Yeah.
But
So was it in the class that you met them for the first time, or kind of friends, or?
okay, so while I was volunteering with the AMEP, I was also doing a bit of tutoring on the side to earn some money.
Yep.
I got a phone call from just a random lady, truly.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she said, "Would you like to teach English to people in their home?" And I said, "Yep, sure, I'll give it a go. This is what I want to do. I need to get some practice."
So was this from an institution or like
she was from Yazda, Australia. So she was the former head of Yazda, Australia.
All right.
Yeah.
And she asked me if I knew Yazidi people, and I said, yes, I know Yazidi people. I had certainly met a Yazidi person before, but I really did not
Didn't know much. Yeah.
know what a Yazidi person, who a Yazidi person was, where they'd come from.
All right.
It was kind of embarrassing because this being about, I'd say, 2018, and, you know, ISIS had been headlines of the news for a long time. But I guess what really hadn't been the headline news was the people who were actually actively affected by this whole situation. And it wasn't until I had my... Yazda Australia is a very, very, very small organisation. We don't have any funds. We don't have any kind of outside assistance, really. So my very first time that I ever taught someone in their home, I showed up to the wrong door and I said, is these people
there?
here?
Yeah.
And they were very clearly not of Iraqi origin, very clearly
Going
not.
to teach English.
So I just walked down the road, found them. But that very first day that I met, I wish I could remember their names.
Yeah, that's okay.
It was just like I had always, because so I grew up after 9/11.
Yeah.
So again, we're in Australia, pretty far away from everything, but when 9/11 happened, our news was full of basically Iraq, Middle East, bad.
Yeah.
I knew that these people who I was meeting to teach English in their home, first time, just me, by myself, was from Iraq, a country that I'd always knew was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I met them, it just instantly melted away. Like, I had walked into a world that I really didn't know existed. And, yeah, it was quite life-changing, I'd have to say.
That's fantastic.
And you were shortlisted for the Multicultural Award.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That old thing.
After that, in 2019.
19? Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Erin, you also started to learn their language to be able to communicate with them.
Well,
tell us a little bit about that.
It was kind of out of necessity because, as I said, I didn't have access to any sort of translators to help me with my lesson.
Yeah.
But as I'd said previously, I'd done enough of a linguistics course to kind of understand how languages are put together.
Yeah.
So everyone understands what a picture is. So if I could show them a picture and say, well, this is a chair in English, my students pretty much understood that I wanted them to say that what it is in their language.
Yeah.
And I was working with people who had no English whatsoever, or some of the older women that I taught also had, like, they'd never had a chance to go to school or anything, so they didn't really have too much of a concept of what it was to learn a language.
Yeah.
So learning Kurdish, I guess, I I could never say that I learnt it enough to be like, you know, be able to have a fluent conversation, but I wanted to learn enough to show. I wanted to learn it to kind of give them a little bit of, give my students their dignity back, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they're struggling. Like, they've lived their whole lives. They've had children. They've done all of these things. And then suddenly they're back doing something that 5-year-olds do. And, you know, and I wanted to put myself on that level too.
Living that experience.
Yeah, I wanted to live that experience. And also, I really like the sound of Kurdish. I thought Kurdish sounded particularly beautiful as well. Like, this, the way the different sounds all fit together. And, but it was really just kind of about respecting them and respecting their language and all of that sort of thing.
I can imagine that just making the effort, I think, is appreciated. Would you? Yeah.
I was struck by something that another one of your guests said. I can't remember which one, but he was a young man.
Talked about languages.
He said, I think one of the questions was what you said is, what can other people do to help you? And something he said, learn our language too, which you guys didn't really talk further with him about that. But I think that's something that is often missing from a lot of English language courses, that sense of reciprocity, especially in terms of teaching older people.
Yep, Erin, we've heard different perspective in terms of how to communicate and get a little bit closer to the refugee community, and many of them say that you don't really need to have a common language to be a nice person to these people.
Yeah.
Other people say that we need a language, and it's good to try and put yourself in their shoes and learn their language. So obviously you're with that.
Well, it's not that, I don't think it's, yes, you're correct. You don't need to have a common language to be kind to someone. But at the same time, it goes a long way. Like, okay, maybe it's not language, but maybe you want to learn recipes. Maybe you want to just, as a Australian born in Australia, the whole concept of monoculture, just by showing an interest, I think you can go a long way into really forming a proper community.
Now, Erin, regarding teaching English as a second language, especially for the secondary school or secondary school students, do you think the system that we have at the moment is helping the students from different background, especially from non-English background, to try and learn and get to that level they could go to uni after that?
I think that's a difficult question to try and answer. I've worked, in my prac experience, I've worked in 2 different systems. One, both in state schools. So one where there's a intensive English program within a mainstream school, and then I've also been at another school where it is only English second language students, and like the whole purpose of that school is dedicated to English second language students. And I actually I can't say that there is actually too much of a difference, except for the experience of the teachers, because with the school that had just the intensive English program, that was relatively new in terms of like the teachers were still understanding the processes, and the other school was fairly well established. The thing that I find, the students that I've observed in, obviously, my 5 years, only 5 years of looking at this sort of thing, the students that really do succeed, they do so despite the system that they're in, not because of the system that they're in. And I think that's got more to do with the fact that Australia as a whole, if we want to get political with it, is really still not accepting of the idea of multiculturalism, especially in the school systems, where a lot of In order for the systems that I see currently to be successful, I feel like there needs to be a lot more money, a lot more time, and a lot more all of that kind of thing.
Sure. What do you reckon then? The system is obviously it's a big thing to fix, and we talk about the education system regularly in Australia about fixing it. What about people who aren't in the system? What can they do you think to try and help these younger people who are in school? Like what can we do? Is there anything we can
so people like outside
us.
Like us,
us being me, people brought up in Australia,
be kind, especially in terms of talking about like teenagers. If you like, I'm from far southwest Queensland. My relatives are from far southwest Queensland. So if my aunts or my uncles saw, say, for example, a group of teenagers of whom they didn't know the ethnic origin of hanging out at a park, their immediate idea might be that they're up to no good or something. But I guess, I don't know, teenagers everywhere kind of get a bad rap, really.
It doesn't matter where they're from.
It doesn't really matter where they're from, but there is always, okay, what are those Asian teenagers doing? What are those African teenagers doing? I mean, okay, if you're going to be prejudiced against teenagers, let's just say, what are those teenagers doing?
Exactly.
But, you know, I'm sure all teenagers can benefit from kindness and understanding of their experience.
Erin, I'm really interested when you talked earlier about your first experience. So you're going into a home without any Kurdish Kurmanji. You don't speak a word of their language, and they don't speak a word of English, and yet something happened there for you, right?
Yeah.
So can you just explain that a little bit? What happened? Did you...
Body language.
Okay.
That was really body language, and I did a lot of preparation to that. I made a lot of my own tools for that class. I PowerPoints.
Wow.
Yeah, I got a lot more stuff over time, but I think, I don't know, I don't know how it happened. I don't know how it worked.
But really, it's not, I think, important how it happened, but where it has led you. You see yourself after 5 years of meeting the first refugee. What has it changed in you as Erin?
I know that I want to keep doing this. I want to be able to serve the community as best as I possibly can. Like, I want to do further studies so I can be better informed about how best to help people who need assistance. I want to be able to, I don't know, anyone I talk to and says, hey, what do you do? I say, well, I want to be able to tell those people about the different people in our community.
Raise awareness.
Raise awareness. It's just, I don't know, I'd say it's really given me direction in life. Like, I know what, because I spent a lot of time not really knowing what I wanted to do after I finished high school. And
Now, one advice or something you would tell a person who has never, who do not know any probably refugees or former refugees, and they don't feel comfortable trying to move forward and talk to them, try to build friendships with them. What would something you would tell them to try and motivate them to do that?
I think you need, if you've never ever interacted with someone who is a refugee or someone who is outside of your circle, I'd say inform yourself to start off with. Like, but also be aware that, like, you know, I could find out everything there is to know about, say, Germany and a German person, but that won't necessarily account for the individual differences of a person.
Yeah.
However, knowing the background of what a refugee, what a particular refugees go through would be a very important first step, as opposed, and then I guess find out what, if you really want to help, find out what people need. You need to know what people need. Maybe they don't need 10 packets of Tim Tams or Vegemite sandwiches. Maybe they really need help with getting kids to school. Maybe they need help with cleaning. Maybe they need help with something. So just
or just talk.
Or just talking. Sure. Yeah.
I think you raised a really good point there, to actually ask and try and find out. Right, sometimes we assume, this poor person must need.
Must
That's
need
right.
And it's kind of,
me
actually,
to
no,
do,
I just want to be your friend or something,
well,
right?
maybe there's, one of my most favourite memories was I worked with this really old, he was 67, which in Australian ways, not that old. He, for me, to my eyes, he seemed quite old. One day I was in his house working with other members of his family teaching English. Next minute we look up, we go, where is he? He's wandered away.
Yeah.
Anyway, lesson goes on. I come out and he's standing with his next door neighbour. His next door neighbour doesn't speak any of his language. He doesn't speak... I was supposed to teach him English. He doesn't speak any English. But then somehow this older man, he saw that his neighbour was working in the garden and he just wanted to go help his neighbour work in the garden. And the neighbour had gotten out his phone and was trying to translate things into Arabic for him, which he understood a little bit of. And so I just thought that was just so beautiful that the neighbour was just so receptive of this old man just coming up and saying, hey, or trying to help him with the garden in the best way that he could. So
that's beautiful.
Sometimes you just need to do something. Doesn't matter.
Just be like, if a strange, I think that's good advice for anything in life. If a strange person comes up to you and talks to you, it's clearly they need someone to talk to. And so best you can do is talk back.
If you're available. Erin, it's been really fabulous chatting with you. It's so exciting to see your passion for working with people of different backgrounds, different languages. Now you're almost completed your teaching degree, is that right?
Yes, my final prac is coming up soon. I don't know if I should say the names of school. I've tried to avoid doing
That's
that,
okay.
but
Local schools?
Local school.
Yeah.
I'll be at your local high school in the future.
Fantastic. Well, that bodes well for our high schools, I'm sure. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you, Erin.
Well, thank you guys.
Well, we've just listened to Erin's story. And Warren, what do you think?
Wow.
She's amazing, isn't she?
She really is amazing. It was so interesting for me to hear of her background coming from way out back west in Queensland and having very little awareness, I guess, of different languages and cultures, even though she had that strong Indigenous community. Then coming to Toowoomba and sort of in her own reflection, she knew that there were people in her school from different places, but she didn't really know where they were from and didn't really explore that more. And then to suddenly have this experience of bam, into a home with a family that don't speak English and she doesn't speak any of their language, and something happened there. I'm still not really sure what it was, but it was just like somehow she could see that it was an important connection had been made.
Yep. The first time I met Erin was probably in 2018. I think only 2 months after arriving in Australia, and she was in the Kurdish class. I was teaching Kurdish at one of the organizations, and we had a very large group of students. And one of them was Erin.
Wow.
So I talked to her, and I saw that she can say a few words in Kurdish. I asked her, how did you learn this? She said, well, I teach English to Yazidi women.
Okay.
And I was like, how do you do that? Then after that, she says that she doesn't speak good Kurdish, but I think she does.
Yeah.
To the point that she's able to try and explain something in Kurdish to them. which helped her in teaching English.
Yeah, that's quite a commitment. But as we discussed with her, it's as much the effort, the fact that you've tried to learn the language, which can be quite meaningful.
Yep.
And when you get to a certain point of speaking the language, then you're actually able to go a step further and help with learning and things like that.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoyed listening to Erin's story, and shall see you in the next one.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Who is My Neighbour? To learn more about the work of You Belong Australia, just head to youbelong.org.au and find out all the ways you can get involved and empower refugees to integrate and thrive. Lastly, would you help support this podcast simply by sharing it with others? You can also write a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or subscribe to us on YouTube. Yes, we are a video podcast as well. Well, thanks again for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Who is My Neighbour?